what people think of most of time, it's power and it's money. They're not thinking of people. They don't have really as their major concern, to the point where everything is discussed in terms of power, money, and markets, isn't it? And even when they say, oh, Africa is a market of 1 billion and something else. Is it really a market, or is it first and foremost people?
Welcome to the Mandela Rhodes Foundation Podcast, where remarkable African leaders share how they navigated challenges, complexity, and change. Each episode uncovers intimate, behind-the-scenes stories that helped shape these leaders' journeys. These honest reflections are paired with bold ideas, key insights, and the kind of leadership that transforms communities and reshapes futures. Join us for a conversation that will stretch your thinking and inspire your impact.
Hello everyone, my name is Judy Sakuza, host of the Mandela Rhodes Foundation Podcast. In this special episode, we are joined by Mrs. Graça Machel, a global humanitarian, women's rights champion, and one of Africa's most respected moral leaders. Her life's work embodies the values of justice, dignity, and shared humanity that sit at the heart of the Mandela Rhodes Foundation. This live recorded conversation explores topics such as ethical leadership in uncertain times, Ubuntu as a lived practice, and the responsibility to hold complexity with empathy. We hope you enjoy it.
Such a special welcome to you, Mrs. Graça Machel. I was reflecting a little bit about when last we sat like this, and we've seen each other since, but like this was actually Madiba's 100th in 2018. That panel with Prof. Wole Soyinka. And I think at the time, sort of interesting questions about how young people think about the role that they occupy and, you know, how we begin to imagine the future. But of course, I think there's been experiences around polarization and maybe people feeling a sense of the hope diminishing. How are you coming in thinking about the world that is currently, you know, we're sitting in and the places that people are sitting in? Where are you sitting in this dynamic?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. And I would like first to ask you to lower expectations about the conversation, because I am really a person who very much down to earth, and in the presence of so brilliant people sitting around here, I'm really honest when I have to tell you that I'm a bit intimidated. My views are formed by the experiences which I have gone through. I'm not a citizen of 21st century. And because of that, please take that into account and not expect that I will be able to immerse in the realities of today as you and the generations much younger than you can own that historical moment in which we are. Let me try to explain myself. We are at a time where what do you call people-centered, you know, analysis and development, etc., are simply words. Basically, people in my view, are absent from what most of the so-called leaders of the world, whether they are political or even when they are business, particularly business, what people think of most of time, it's power and it's money. They're not thinking of people. They don't have really as their major concern, to the point where everything is discussed in terms of power, money, and markets, isn't it? And even when they say, oh, Africa is a market of 1 billion and something else. Is it really a market, or is it first and foremost people? Because if you say some market, you are talking of those who sell and buy. In Africa, the majority of people don't sell and buy. They are simply people who are struggling for survival, the basic survival. So if you are to think of Africans, you should be looking, who is an African today? Where is he? What he or she? And what are the conditions in which they live? Then you'll talk of Africans. But if you transform them into market, even if you want to talk of industrialization, there's no industrialization here on this continent. Mm-hmm. You minimize the thinking of who are Africans, what are their needs, their aspirations, where do you start if you are to plan development with Africans. You take a thinking which doesn't go with the reality of the millions, the majority of millions of Africans. This is one point. Uh-huh. The other point which I feel is like, most of us as Africans, we are molded somehow on the basis of us and the West, okay? But the world is moving in another direction which we haven't even started to think of in terms of what the future of development of the world is going to be. Look at, in my logic of people first, where are the biggest populations of the world today? Are they in the West? No. Where are they? Asia. Because billions of people. Are they? China alone is no. You go to Indonesia, you go to India, those people, and all of them together, they are much bigger than us as Africans, right? So the shift in terms of, if you think people, that's my argument. If you think people, you have to say, we are the biggest population of the world. And if you think development, you have to take into account people. That's where it's going. It's not in the West. And it's not, unfortunately, as we speak, it's not in Africa because of our underdevelopment, right? So I'm talking to you as researchers and fellows, and hey, these shifts I'm talking about, it's important to consider that when we say, where are we, understand first these currents or undercurrents which are happening, so that you will think and you will plan, you will train, in your case, the leaders you train, but knowing that the next 10, 20, 50 years, the world is moving in this direction. And Africans are squeezed here. They're not in the West. They're not yet in Asia, but they are here. So I think it is important to say where the world is going when you have this picture clear. Another shift, we are now moving to the digital. Fair enough. It's absolutely correct to do this. But what is the meaning of digital for Africans? Most of our children, even in secondary school, and sometimes even at the university, they don't have a computer at home. They don't have electricity. So when you say us, who is us in this context? So I'm setting this, and I'm saying I'm of 20th century here. And I'm setting this for us not to think of us who are in this room, who belong to certain segments in our societies, without taking into account that the billions of people at this moment, where are they? What is the level of development in which they are? And if you say then Africa, how Africa is positioned.
I want to take us back to the 20th century that you keep referring to. And I wanted you to maybe reflect, you mentioned earlier, this sort of sensing where the system is so that you can make the moves that are necessary. When you look back, when was the moment where it clicked for you that something wasn't right and that there was a call for you to then think about joining the sort of liberation struggle movement? What were you observing? What were you sensing? What had happened? Was it your time in Lisbon, studying there? Where did it come from for you?
No, it started much earlier for obvious reasons. I had access to secondary school for the lack of, 1 month, 2, sorry. I was turning 14, and 14 was the limit for me to be accepted in a public school. And so my birthday is October, and September was the limit. And just because of this 1 month, my brother managed to get me to put my papers and then go to secondary school, public school. And in my third year, I'm in a class of 40. I'm the only black child. And I had to look around. It's really intense to look around. How does it happen that in this country, which is of majority of black people, I am in a class where I'm the only one? You don't need it to be politically, educated for you to see that you are strange. You are not at your place. And this was the beginning of my questioning. The second moment is I complete my secondary school. Now I have to go to university. My parents couldn't, my brothers couldn't pay, and I'm looking for a scholarship. I got a scholarship. And I need to have a health certificate to say that I am healthy and I can get this scholarship and go to Lisbon. I go and see a doctor, a lady. And she says to me, "But why do you have to go to Portugal?" I said, "No, because the course I want is not available here. And in fact, I have already submitted my papers to a university in Portugal." No, you don't have to take that risk. It's going to be very difficult for you. So you will feel lonely. Why don't you just take a secondary training? You will be with your family. You see, I was not very smart at the time, but I looked at him and said, "But doctor, I came to ask you for a health certificate. I didn't come for orientation, a professional orientation to decide where I should go." When you are told, when you are felt to feel strange in your own country. Second, when you have aspirations and you want to do certain things, they say, no, lower those things. Why should you really bother? There are small things which were instilled in us daily, which were telling us that in our own country, we did not belong. And you don't need to be very intelligent to feel this. Portugal, for me, felt extremely useful because I'm a little bit out and I meet other students of other colonies. So the space, it's much open for debate and for learning. We had Angola, we had the Guinea-Bissau, we had the Cape Verde, and then so my family is not Mozambicans, and the questions which had been instilled in me, now we are asking questions collectively, and we build the sense of us, the students from the colonies and the rest of the system. That's where the consciousness then started really and also aspects to debates, aspects to reading, etc., etc. I want to tell you that when you want to understand where we came from, you have to look at the level of isolation, of discrimination we went through, and then the opportunity for us to elaborate intellectually until you get then to the point that I just have to liberate. I have to break. I have to break with this system. My identity as Mozambican, to be declared Mozambican, accepted by that, happened the moment I landed in Dar es Salaam. After I had left my studies, I landed in Dar es Salaam and I can say, I am Mozambican. Because before that, I was Portuguese. I was a citizen of Portuguese East Africa. There was no Mozambican identity at the time. And you will not understand this for your generation. You can't understand this. But when you carry up to your age of 21, 22, that you are not Mozambican, you can't even, have a pass which says Mozambican, you are Portuguese. This is something which builds in you the sense of, no, something is wrong here. It's wrong and it has to change. So I was long because for some of you, you had never thought of the kind of, here in South Africa, for instance, they were not being considered South Africans. People here were not South Africans. They were Xhosas, they were Zulus, they were ethnic, but at least they were recognized as, you know what I mean? We in Portuguese colonies, we were Portuguese. And our identity cards for me to go to school had to say that I'm Portuguese. So that's why I had to break with that system.
I love it. Thank you so much. So let's then draw on this energy that you had to sort of think through how we can shift these systems to now becoming the First Minister of Education for now this country called Mozambique and this identity called Mozambican. And how were you thinking about the role that education could play in perhaps shifting a new narrative around the identity of the people of Mozambique, and also what you believed education could do to help the country advance positively?
I must say that at that point, there was no I, there was us. Because when we reach independence, we have built already the consciousness of being Mozambicans, and the liberation movement had instilled in us all. There's not me, there's us, the collective. So it's not because I was special for me to become Minister of Education. It's simply because Mozambique had 93% of illiteracy when we became independent. I had happened to have gone to university. I didn't complete, but I went to university. So I was amongst the few, very few, who had education, including higher education. So I was told to become minister. I didn't choose. It was completely far from me to think that I'll be minister one day. But I was told because we not I, because we needed now to confront the issue of high rates of illiteracy in the country, and someone had to do this. I don't go into the details of how much I cried and I tried to say no, I will not be able. I can't tell you. But at the end, I was simply, you know what? Don't make us waste time here, because in this case, no one has been minister, no one has been president, no one has been anything. All of us will have to learn to do something for our country. So, are you ready or not?
Yeah.
What would you do? So, I was also lucky that those days for us working in collective was a must. It was really a must. So, we established a team which happened to be a very strong team. All of them, members of my team, were much older than me. Not all, but most of them had much more education than mine, or experience at least in education. I'm 29, okay? And they say you are minister, and it was really extremely complicated. But I had a team, and we learned to really think through before you make a decision. That's the lesson of my life. It started when I became. You think very seriously before you get to a decision. But once a decision is made, it's my responsibility, because I'm the one who's member of the cabinet.
Yeah.
So we would have lengthy debates and discussions of how really to design for the first time a national education system which would serve Mozambique, based on Mozambique. As I was saying before, no one knew the rivers of Mozambique, the provinces. No one. We knew everything about Portugal. We didn't know about our own country. So we had to really redraft everything, so that then we train teachers and we develop, the curricula, and we develop the textbooks and everything. But it was an issue which has taught me perhaps the best lessons of my life. Never make decisions alone. And it has also taught me to say, you know what, consult the people you intend to serve. Consult. And we had serious consultations with the parents, with the leaders, etc., before we could say, this is what we are going to teach in our schools. So just to say, it was not a merit being made Minister of Education. It was a simply duty and an obligation.
So, you quoting statistics like 93% illiteracy when you started. We sit in 2025 in South Africa with the statistic of 82% of 10-year-olds not being able to learn, to read for meaning. How then do you explain or justify that at your time you had those rates, and 30, 40 years later, we still live in contexts where those rates are normal? And what is the gap of leadership that is not shifting this pattern as significantly as it should?
I don't think it will be elegant for me to sit here and criticize those who are in power today. I was Minister of Education for 14 years. We did good things. We made lots of mistakes, and I left, public life, and I have been now in what we call, the civil society movement. So it's easy for me to criticize why things have not been moving as they should move. But what I want to say is this strength of systems of education which do not prepare children for life is South African, is African, and unfortunately, it is also happening in other parts of the world. And it has to do with, I started here as an introduction. When you think of a system which has to be aligned, okay, is to be aligned with the trends of the world today. But you are not developing a system which takes into account your specific realities. You ignore the principles of what these parents and these families are living in. And you give them notions of knowing how to read and write and to count, etc., etc. But then they lack the rootedness in their own culture, in their own way of living, and even the practical ways of know how. Every child in African context knows what to do. They are taught to do things, practical things. I don't know whether you know this. Perhaps some of you, because you are in cities, you don't know. But every child in African rural circumstances, oh no. And we throw away, because yes, I am part of those who are fighting against, discrimination of women. We fight against that. But in education, no, we have to go back to the basics and take it from there. And you engage parents as part of the education as such. So, to be short in your response, I think we abandon the need to take from where people are and you move with them to a different level where you have certain things which have been agreed and you take them then back to. Teachers are not trained enough. The systems are completely in conflict. Most of the children, they speak the national language. They don't speak English, French, and Portuguese. And then you want them to know how to read and write and to be proficient, etc., etc. It's not working. I think some say decolonize education. Have you heard this? Yeah, they say decolonize education. And perhaps the other way of saying it's not only to decolonize, it's Africanize education. It's different. And the approach will be also, in my view, different.
You don't start me on that, because my team knows I always ask this question, right? Because what is the mental framework one is approaching when you speak of the decentering, right? Versus if you say Africanized, there's almost like a imagination and a reimagining and a creative, energy. Mm-hmm. And I think I found myself in spaces where I maybe was too much just thinking about the Africanization, because that's my instinct. I'm like, no, guys, let's create. But there's something about the importance of the acknowledgement process that says there is a system that has existed that has caused this kind of hurt to people, and it was called colonization. Mm-hmm. And it continues to perpetuate in the systems today in the following ways. So what might it look like to acknowledge that exists, so that then from that place, you're able to feel like you can continue to do the work? And it's an interesting debate for people, because it's a tension of, but if you keep just looking at the structure, you're going to be stuck in some of its perceptions, but rather just create your own table. So this dilemma of, do you join the tables that exist, or do you create your own?
Elevate the experience of education and of African children. Elevate this to modern times, where you are going, of course, to make it, the intersection with global trends and the development of the world today, so that we are not going to go back. But you have to begin from here. It has to rise and to grow and to strengthen from who you are. You go up And the opposite is from what the British are, the French are, the Portuguese are, and then you bring it to an African child. It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. So I think the reimagination which we have to do, you put it in your words, okay? And I'm putting in the language of the 20th century. But it's to say, really, we miss that understanding of giving, of affirmation of who we are and how do we raise, how do we grow, how do we get to levels which can be aligned with the development of the world today. Have you seen how the Japanese are? They are extremely developed, right? But they are Japanese. They are Japanese. There's no doubt about that, isn't it? Yeah. That's the example I can bring. It's you have to be able to grow and to adapt and to learn from others. But you have to strengthen your own identity.
Because what's preventing us from not doing that? Why are we not taking up our agency?
And I'm saying you now, I'm taking it to you, young people. These are the questions you not only ask, but you have to begin to put on the table solutions of what should be done. What should be done and how it should be done. You know, that's the question Judy was asking. Is that many times all of us, we ask, how do we do this? How? But no one says, let's do this. Hey. Yeah, let's experiment something, but to solve this problem. In our meetings, how many solutions, proposals of solutions we put on the table? Most of the time we leave hundreds of questions, but very less of very concrete. And this, I think, is the challenge of your generations today. This is the challenge. And I have a message for you. And she's asking questions. I also had a message for you. You know, you are brilliant people. I really admire the work you are doing. And I wanted to start by this. Judy is leading the Mandela Rhodes Foundation. Then there is the Nelson Mandela Foundation, which is doing another stuff. The Tutu's Foundation, the Steve Biko's Foundation, all those big leaders of this continent, they are foundations which are a training. And you say something which I disagree, because most of you say the next generation of leaders. No, it's not the next generation of leaders. Generations of leaders, which are different. But they begin now. You started to lead this organization, Judy. You were in your 30s, early 30s. And no one said you are too young to lead Mandela Rhodes. And so when you say next generation, you are denying the right of leading to those who are now in not 30s. They are in 25, 27, and all those generations. You have to begin to say, we are preparing the leaders of today and the leaders of tomorrow. It's not the next generation. It's this. Because no one will know well. To know well, I mean, the realities, the aspirations, and even to put the solutions I'm talking about on the table. No, a person of 60 years old is a little bit old already. You need to, no. These young people in their 25, 30, 35, they are they're bubbling with ideas. They have to take responsibility to put the solutions on the table for the future. And not thinking that those who are in 60s, those in 65, they have to support. They have to build the bridge, you know, the generational bridge of bringing the knowledge of the past, but to give it to this generation to take responsibility for the, not only of today, but for the future. Isn't it so?
That's right.
So those foundations which carry the names of very prominent people, they have advantage of having trained people ethical leadership. As this is when they introduced here, oh, Judy, integrity. Yes. And you are training people in integrity, isn't it? Those who are in government do have integrity. Perhaps not. What I want to say here is that you have been training thousands, even perhaps hundreds of thousands, all of you together.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they? In leadership,
yes.
In terms of leading, where are they? This is my message. So as you have here, I mean, these foundations, these institutions, I was reading all the information of institutions which you are working with. It's impressive. And this is how the world is. It is globalized. You need to know what comes from Asia, from Europe, from the States, from Latin America, and you work together. But please, push the young people you are training to take leadership, to take the top of leadership. Yeah. Because the world is confused as it is. But you are investing. Mm-hmm. But what you invest, you say, they are in different layers. Mandela, Biko, and all those, you know how old they were? Yeah. You know how old they were? They are exactly the age of those you are training now. And they led the struggle with that age. This generation needs your trainees to take the leadership of where the world goes.
Well, everybody, Mrs. Graça Machel reminding us once again where the responsibility lies, and really to thank you for your wisdom, your courage, your grace, and your ability to always get us to look at a different angle on a problem. So thank you so much once again for being with us. All right, we're going to take 3 questions.
Yes, let's take questions. Please be seated. Please be seated. It's not allowed to embarrass your elderly. It's not.
You can't embarrass your elders. You can't
embarrass elders. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
My name is Cindy Somnisi Weeks, and I'm from Johannesburg, and I'm here in my capacity as having been a South Africa at Large Rhodes Scholar in 2005. I'm currently affiliated with the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, as well as the University of Cape Town. Mom Graça, this is a question for you. First, I just want to acknowledge with such deep appreciation what you shared with us, deeply moving, and your humility is what really stands out to me. And I am honestly humbled by your humility. That somebody in your position could be so humble is extraordinary. The question that I had for you is the incredibly powerful story that you told about, how you developed your consciousness, and specifically the idea about, having not been able to be Mozambican, but having been Portuguese. And that definitely is one of the sort of violences that happened through colonialism and in South Africa, apartheid. But as a South African by birth, one of the things that breaks my heart the most is the fact that the harms of colonialism and apartheid also go the other way, in the sense that we think of ourselves as Africans as much more separate and different than we are. And because of that, xenophobia in South Africa is a very severe reality. And I guess in your case, if I may be so bold as to be frank, as a Mozambican, I don't think that you have received the reception that you deserve, in South Africa, with the kinds of, things that people have said about you. And I guess I wonder, if you could share a little bit about whether that is something that you experience as unique to South Africans, or if that is something that is also a part of your colonial experience, of having not known yourself as a Mozambican, but known yourself as a Portuguese person, first and foremost, in that sense. Thank you.
I'll try to be very short. South Africa has a huge challenge which is to have clarity on how to regain an identity of African as Africans. And when I say Africans, Black, colored, Indian, white South Africans, to see themselves as Africans in one nation. What is happening is the system which had been instituted here left really very deep sense of not being yourself. In fact, when you have cases of xenophobia, at the first instance, it's like it's against those who were not born in South Africa. Mm-hmm. But it's not. It's much deeper than that. It's because South Africans and Black South Africans have not yet gained their own identity and be comfortable with themselves. Yeah. And this is an issue which and I think now I can challenge you. And you told me that you are related to different organizations. Please help your leaders in this country to know how to begin, to open space for this debate. In essence, Black South Africans are so hurt, so humiliated that what they're doing, it's not against the foreigners, it's against their own sense of being an African. And then you have a situation where those of Indian origin, they think they're South Africans of Indian, and others are colored. Where is the South African, regardless of race, regardless of ethnic group? Where is it? You don't find it. People are still extremely divided here. And as the time goes, it's even worse. You need to come to a time where you are going to see into the eyes of each one, regardless of race, regardless of Zulu, Xhosa, as citizens of this nation. And then you'll be in peace with yourself. You'll be peace with those who come here. But this is because there has been a very deep process of restructuring institutions. South African institutions were really, shaken and changed completely. Between what it was during apartheid and today, there's no comparison. Well done, extremely well done. But in economy, you tried with BEE, it's not working, you have to revise it. But in social transformation, I'm saying social transformation, we haven't even started. And that's the issue we are dealing with. And I can tell you this because I'm Mozambican, but I am also South African by heart. And I can discuss this with no problem. I know what you're talking about. Some of the people said, you mean there are no women in this country for Madiba to marry a Mozambican? It went even to that point. I know, but baby girl. But I'm happy for us to begin to have these discussions.
Yeah.
Who are we as South Africans? Yeah. It's what other people would call self-hate. Yeah. That's what is happening here.
Hello, I'm Gabrielle Mondestin. I'm from the Posse Foundation. My question to you is, what advice do you have for leaders who or fighting the system that doesn't want you to be seen.
I did mention that in our time, it was easier because it was easier. It was not even an issue because we were, a collective of freedom fighters who have come to power, and we started looking around and say, who has the qualification, minimum of qualifications to do this and to do that, etc. So we do not know the experience of risk you are talking about. And now you are asking, you are there, you are ready, but how do you now show up and say, we are here and we are aiming to A, B, C, D things into this system? I think my first question is, are you organized in a network? You are. Because that's important. You can't go as individual. You have to go as a collective. And my question is whether you are organized enough, not only for one single position, because you have a diversity of qualifications which you are. You have also a very diverse kind of positions in which you can, make a difference. And you come as a group. Don't come as an individual. You are a group in which you have aimed clearly. Some will be, for education, others will be for finance, others will be different sectors in which you know that you have, the qualifications, and of course you have the drive and you have commitment, you are ready for it. But you are not going to go alone. So you will be 3, 4, 5 of you, and you come. It is extremely difficult, although it's extreme. I think it will be, the risk will be less if you come as a group, and a group in different sectors, than if you come as someone, even if you have a network which is supporting Layla alone. No, you come as we. And we are ready. We are organized. And of course, behind you, you know also that you have people who support you.
Brilliant.
So I think that's my suggestion. But this would, again, require much length, of a reflection. But just take this as to start with. Come as a group, and behind the group which are showing the heads, there is also other people who are supporting from behind, of different generations, of your generations, including of those who have said 20th century, like us, whom you know that the moment you appear, then you'll have the ones of 70 and 80 like us. Oh yes, that's time. That's the right time. This is the generation. These are the people with this qualification, so they support you. I think you need to see how to organize, and when the time comes, talk to us as well.
My name is Duran Wallace. Thank you so much for all that you've shared, for the work that you've done. More importantly, I wanted to revisit your response to the first question, and perhaps to engage what might be an alternative perspective. You name self-hatred as being central to the formation and function of xenophobia in South African context. Could it be that that's only part of the story? What role is there for moving beyond a reading of that may push us beyond what could seem like a psychologizing of, in fact, a structural and historical problem? In particular, what is the role of the transformation of our schools to teach our young people to love themselves, one, and also to recognize the ongoing educational legacies of empire? I asked that question because having worked in ministries of education in Jamaica, in Rwanda, I have seen the core function that schools can play. And even as we're talking about polarization, we often only teach about it, talk about it when we get to this age. And so I'm wondering if you could comment on how this self-hatred can be manufactured through the formation and function of educational policies in our schools. Thank you very much.
Yes, you are right. But it is important that there is what I tried to say, that South Africa doesn't have yet a policy of social transformation as they tried to have with BEE, and which is questionable. But there was an attempt of how do we transform society? How do we transform, mentality? How do we transform attitudes of people towards themselves and towards the others? That's the question. When you teach in schools, it's because you have a policy already. And you know what you want to instill in young generations in terms of them to grow, knowing that they are growing in a new ground, in a new way of dealing with perhaps some generational trauma they might have, but they are guided to deal with this trauma and then to become citizens who are self-confident and who are able to relate to others. The question was, which perhaps I didn't explain properly, is that approach, the way of how to transform society, transform mentality, attitudes, relations, even. You see the way those who are so-called gender-based violence, do you see the sophistication in which they kill women? It's not only to kill them, but the sophistication of how they kill them. Have you thought of that? It's part of the problem. People, men and women, they do not know how to relate to one another in a relation of respect, of love, of complementarity, and all that. The self-hate they have, they express also in the way they relate, even in relations of a husband and wife, or whatever you want to call. So I think you guys, you have to help. This country to begin to confront the problem. Rwanda. Rwanda is very clear about what has happened and how we don't want it to happen again, right? But here you don't have this discussion. We don't have this discourse. So that's part of the problem. Second, you are also aware of now, you begin to see even in schools, the children against other children. You see? Even in schools. That's part of that problem. Those who are saying no to Zimbabweans, no to South Africans, or Ethiopians, whatever, are the adults. Children are not doing that. The children are revealing that they need that kind of confrontation because of the way they treat one another. And there's a lot of violence in schools amongst the same age, while those who are saying, out with the foreigners, out of Nana, are the adults. But it's part of the same problem. In my view, it's part of the same. We need to confront it. We need to structure. We need to train ourselves. It's not only schools. All sectors of society have to begin to discuss the problem. How do we regain our own identity? And we affirm as the citizens who are eradicating this kind, because I believe basically it's a self-hate. Basically, it's not only, but it's manifestation of that kind of a thing.
Perfect place to close it. Thank you so much, everybody. Mrs. Graça Machel.
Thank you for listening to the Mandela Rhodes Foundation Podcast. To learn more about the Mandela Rhodes Foundation, visit our website at www.mandelarhodes.org. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram for more updates. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your platform of choice to be notified of new episodes. This is a Volume Podcast production.